Many of our people of faith are gathering in Selma, and so it's a pleasure to be with you on this day, here with you in Dallas, Texas, in our city, to remember that day. 2 people died on that day on the bridge, and those people were Reverend James Reeb and Viola Louisa. They're both Unitarians, so I stand here in remembrance of them. Reeb was beaten by a group of white men. He was a white man himself and a reverend, and he was coming out of a cafe, an integrated cafeteria, and he was beaten by a bunch of men to death. Viola was driving people to the protest stack, and she was shot by a white supremacist who was driving alongside her and didn't like what she was doing. So today we don't only stand, personally I don't only stand here for the big effort of voting, I also stand here in remembrance of those people who gave their lives and joined together. They stood and crossed a bridge. A bridge connects communities, and our job, not only in voting, but in all we do, is to connect our communities. To break down racial bias, to break down things that are keeping us separate, to break down all kinds of history. We stand in this city right now with roads that are named for people who were known to be in the Klan. Dallas was one time the center of Klan activity in the South. We're living with that legacy. And as a white person, that makes me ashamed. It's our job, everyone together, to break down that bias, to work on racial justice, and to lead it all the way to the polls where everyone is represented. Can you imagine that only 50 years ago African Americans didn't have the vote? How amazing is that?
It is
It's hard to believe.
That's right. It is.
And for someone who was not there, I was born just right before Martin Luther King was shot. My mom held me in the church, the Unitarian church where I grew up. They were singing songs in vigil for Martin Luther King, and something of that justice movement seeped into me. But I can hardly believe that it's only 50 years, and we still have a long way to go. If we don't use our abilities, our civil rights, then we don't get anything done.
That's right.
And that's why voting is so important. That's why representation in our government by the people we choose and put there, and then talk to and lobby and make them understand what we need. We need them to address things like racial bias and gender bias and all kinds of rights for women and all kinds of things that need our attention. None of it happens if we don't stand up, we don't gather, we don't cross bridges together. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. Where all are welcome in that land. All are welcome in that land. All are welcome in that land.
Came together today on the 50th anniversary of the March Across the Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, where Martin Luther King called clergy and people of faith to come and walk beside the people of Alabama in support of voting rights. And so today's event was really about voting, but for me it was also about the remembrance of 2 Unitarians who died, Reverend James Reeb and Viola Louisa, who died at that march. And and also about how civil rights is not something that we can take for granted, that we have to work for it, we have to continue to preserve it. So today was a great event. We had about 150 people here crossing the bridge that connects communities, and I think it's our job to continue to work to connecting communities across the bias that we have, the bias we encounter, across issues, across the needs to create democracy in our midst. So I hope that this event really speaks to the city of Dallas about what's happening around institutional racism, around misrepresentation about the disease of racism in our society, and that we might start to really see some projects that we can work on. And as a city, we have a lot of way to go. We never had a civil rights movement, as I understand it, here, but we certainly have issues that we have to continue to work on around equality and justice. So I hope that this event really stimulates some of that.